Behind the chrome and custom paint jobs of Count's Kustoms lies a treasure trove of bizarre secrets that would shock even the most devoted fans. From embezzlement scandals involving $75,000 to mysterious cast disappearances that were never explained on air, the reality behind this Las Vegas car show is stranger than any custom build rolling out of Danny Koker's garage. Prepare to discover the dark mysteries, weird coincidences, and jaw-dropping revelations that the cameras tried to hide. Fact 1. Dany was a vampire horror host before cars. Long before Danny Koker became famous for transforming classic cars on Counting Cars, he spent an entire decade entertaining Las Vegas audiences as a completely different kind of character. From 1990 to 2000, Koker hosted a weekly horror movie showcase called Saturday Fright at the Movies on local television station KFBT, which is now known as KVCW. But this wasn't just any ordinary movie host gig. Dany transformed himself into a full-blown vampire character called Count Cool Rider, complete with gothic costume, cape, and dramatic vampire persona. The show aired every Saturday night and featured classic B-movies and horror films, with Dany appearing between segments in his vampire outfit to introduce the films and entertain viewers with his theatrical antics. He would greet audiences with his signature line, "Good evening, and welcome to Saturday Fright at the Movies. I am your host, Count Cool Rider," delivered in a dramatic Dracula-style voice that was worlds away from his later car show personality. What makes this even more interesting is that the Koker family actually owned the television station where the show aired. When Dany's parents bought KFBT, it gave him the perfect opportunity to dive into television hosting and develop his on-screen presence. The character was so popular with local Las Vegas viewers that people still remember and talk about Count Cool Rider decades later, even after Dany became famous for cars instead of horror movies. This early television experience explains where Dany got his nickname, The Count, that he still uses today, and it also shows how he developed his comfort with being on camera and entertaining audiences. The gothic, vampire-inspired aesthetic from his horror hosting days even carried over into his later car business, where he incorporated dark themes and vampire elements into the branding of Count's Kustoms. In 2016, Dany was even inducted into the official Horror Host Hall of Fame, recognizing his contribution to the classic tradition of local television horror movie hosts. Fact 2. A cast member embezzled $75,000 in broad daylight. One of the most shocking scandals in Counting Cars history involved Joseph Frontiera, who worked behind the scenes handling the accounting department at Count's Kustoms. In 2017, Danny Koker's company filed a major lawsuit against Frontiera, accusing him of stealing more than $75,000 from the business over several years to pay for his own personal expenses. According to the legal documents filed in Las Vegas court, Frontiera had been using company money in remarkably bold ways that showed just how brazen his alleged theft really was. The lawsuit claimed he used Count's Kustoms funds to make the down payment on his personal Land Rover Range Rover and to purchase airline tickets for his own travel needs. But perhaps the most shocking detail was how he allegedly pulled off these transactions by creating rubber-stamped copies of Danny Koker's and Kevin Mack's signatures so he could approve financial transactions without their knowledge or permission. The scheme only came to light when Count's Kustoms began noticing irregularities in their accounting records and started finding problems with some client accounts and projects. When the company decided to conduct their own background check on Frontiera, they discovered he had a previous criminal history involving embezzlement and fraud charges with a former employer in Florida, which apparently had never been disclosed when he was hired. The situation became even more complicated because Frontiera had been hired through a staffing company called Randstad Professionals, and Count's Kustoms also sued them for allegedly failing to reveal his problematic employment history. The financial damage went beyond just the missing $75,000, because Frontiera's failure to pay the company's taxes on time resulted in an additional $18,000 penalty from the Internal Revenue Service. After the lawsuit was filed, Frontiera was charged with felony theft and completely disappeared from the show, with his name being entirely erased from Counting Cars history as if he had never existed. Fact 3. Scott Jones vanished without any explanation. One of the strangest mysteries in Counting Cars history involves Scott Jones, who served as the shop manager and bookkeeper during the show's first 2 seasons before completely vanishing from the series without any warning or explanation. Scott was a key figure in the early episodes, known for his no-nonsense attitude and his willingness to argue with Danny Koker and other crew members when projects went over budget or behind schedule, always keeping the business side of Count's Kustoms running smoothly. When Season 3 premiered, viewers immediately noticed that Scott was nowhere to be found. And what made his absence even more puzzling was that the show never addressed what happened to him or why he was no longer part of the team. This complete lack of explanation from the producers left fans confused and frustrated, especially since Scott had been such a prominent character who played an important role in the shop's daily operations. The silence surrounding his departure was so unusual that it sparked countless theories and speculation among devoted viewers of the show. The mystery deepened because Scott was replaced by Kevin Mack, who became Danny's new right-hand man and best friend. But again, no one ever explained why this change happened or what circumstances led to Scott leaving. Some fans developed wild theories that Scott might have gotten into legal trouble similar to other accounting-related scandals that would later hit the show, while others speculated about potential conflicts behind the scenes that the cameras never captured. The only clue viewers ever received came during a brief mention in Season 3, where it was casually stated that Scott had moved to Tennessee after his youngest son was born. This simple explanation suggests that his departure was actually much more mundane than the dramatic theories fans had created, and that he likely left to focus on his growing family and start a new chapter of his life away from the television spotlight. Since leaving the show, Scott has maintained an extremely low profile with no active social media presence, and there have been unconfirmed reports that he opened his own automotive shop in Greenville, Tennessee. Fact 4. Danny's rock band existed before his TV fame. Many fans of Counting Cars assume that Danny Koker started his rock band Count 77 as a side project after becoming famous on television, but the truth is actually the complete opposite. Count 77 was formed years before Counting Cars ever premiered on the History Channel in 2012, which means Danny was already an established musician long before he became a household name for customizing cars. The band focuses specifically on hard rock music inspired by the 1970s, and Danny serves as the lead vocalist while being joined by talented musicians including John Zito on guitar, Stoney Curtis on lead guitar, Barry Barnes on bass, and Paul DeCibio on drums. The name 77 is a direct reference to the 1970s decade, which serves as the primary musical inspiration for all of their songs and performances. What makes this even more impressive is that Count 77 isn't just a hobby band playing local venues for fun. They actually have a legitimate record deal with Shrapnel Records, a well-known label in the rock and metal music industry. The band released their debut album in August of 2014, which was a 13-track release that was simply titled Count 77, and they followed that up with a sophomore album called Soul Transfusion in 2017. Danny's musical background actually runs much deeper than most people realize, since his father was a professional musician who played piano and sang baritone for a southern gospel group called the Cathedral Quartet back in the 1960s. This family connection to music helped shape Danny's love for performing and singing from a very young age, long before he ever thought about working on cars for television. The band continues to perform regularly at venues around Las Vegas and beyond, with Dany often scheduling shows at his own rock and roll bar called Count's Vamp, proving that his passion for music remains just as strong as his love for automobiles. Fact 5. Horny Mikes' name comes from his horn obsession. One of the most memorable characters on Counting Cars is Mike Henry, who goes by the unusual nickname Horny Mike. And while viewers might assume this name has some inappropriate meaning, the truth is actually much more innocent and artistic than most people realize. Mike earned his distinctive nickname because he has a genuine obsession with putting three-dimensional horns on absolutely everything he customizes, whether it's cars, motorcycles, helmets, clothing, or any other item that comes through his airbrush station at Count's Kustoms. This horn obsession isn't just an occasional creative choice for Mike. It's become his signature artistic trademark that defines his entire approach to custom work. He fabricates the horns himself and then strategically places them on vehicles and other items as a way of adding his personal touch to every project. The horns aren't just randomly stuck on either. Mike carefully designs and positions them to complement the overall aesthetic of whatever he's working on, turning what could be a silly gimmick into a legitimate artistic signature. Mike's horn fascination extends far beyond his professional work at the shop and into his personal life as well. He owned a customized bus that he called the Horny Bus, which was painted bright green and covered with horns both large and small, including two prominent horns protruding from the front and smaller decorative horns scattered across the roof. Even his personal vehicles and belongings get the horn treatment, making his obsession a constant part of his identity rather than just something he does for the television cameras. The nickname has become so associated with Mike's artistic style that fans of the show immediately recognize his work whenever they see horns incorporated into a custom paint job or vehicle modification. His catchphrase, "Let's get horny," has become a running joke on the show, but it's actually a reference to his artistic process rather than anything inappropriate. Mike's horn obsession demonstrates how a simple creative quirk can become a defining characteristic that sets an artist apart in a competitive field like custom automotive work. Fact 6. The car buying scenes are completely staged. One of the most exciting elements of Counting Cars involves those spontaneous moments where Danny Koker spots a classic car on the streets of Las Vegas, chases down the owner, and makes an on-the-spot cash offer to buy their vehicle. These scenes create dramatic television, as viewers watch Dany approach complete strangers with wads of money, negotiate deals on the sidewalk, and drive away with amazing cars that just happened to cross his path. However, the reality behind these seemingly impromptu encounters is that they are entirely staged and scripted for the cameras. The actual process works completely differently than what viewers see on television. Production crews contact potential car sellers well before filming begins, approaching people off-camera to gauge their interest in appearing on the show and potentially selling their vehicles. Once someone agrees to participate, the financial terms of the deal are negotiated and finalized behind the scenes, with all the important details worked out long before the cameras start rolling. After the business arrangements are completed, the production team creates a script for the encounter that will appear natural and spontaneous when filmed. The car owners are given their lines and told exactly how the scene should play out, including their reactions to Dany's approach and their responses to his offers. Even Dany's seemingly off-the-cuff remarks and negotiations are carefully planned to create the most entertaining television possible. This staging process makes perfect sense from a production standpoint, since the alternative would be genuinely alarming for most people. The idea of a stranger in a bandana approaching random car owners on the street, while followed by a full camera crew, would likely frighten most people rather than result in successful negotiations. The staged approach allows the show to capture the excitement of car deals while ensuring that everyone involved knows what to expect and feels comfortable participating in the filming process, even though it removes the authentic spontaneity that makes these scenes so compelling for viewers at home. Fact 7. Dany can't sell his own personal cars. Despite making his living by buying, restoring, and selling cars for profit, Danny Koker has openly admitted that he faces a serious emotional problem when it comes to parting with vehicles from his own personal collection. While he can easily sell commissioned work that belongs to customers, Dany struggles tremendously with selling cars that he has personally worked on and considers part of his own collection, creating an ironic situation where the man who makes money flipping cars can't actually flip his own vehicles. Dany has explained that he becomes deeply emotionally attached to every car he restores because he puts so much of his time, energy, and creative vision into each project. He describes the restoration process as putting a piece of himself into every build, which makes selling those cars feel like he's giving away parts of his own identity and personal history. This emotional connection goes far beyond simple business transactions and turns each vehicle into something more like a work of art or a personal memoir that he's reluctant to let go. The problem has become so significant that Dany's personal car collection has grown to massive proportions, with reports indicating he owned around 58 cars and 78 motorcycles as of 2013, and those numbers have likely continued to grow since then. While this might sound like a dream situation for any car enthusiast, it actually creates practical challenges in terms of storage space, maintenance costs, and the simple logistics of managing such an enormous collection of vehicles. Dany has acknowledged that this emotional attachment sometimes conflicts with the practical realities of running a business, since he needs to generate revenue to pay bills and support his employees at Kustoms. He's described the internal struggle he faces when exceptional offers come in for his personal vehicles, knowing that the smart business decision would be to sell but finding it emotionally impossible to let go of cars that represent years of his personal work and passion. Fact 8. 15 car builds happen simultaneously. While viewers watching counting cars might assume that the crew at Kustoms works on 1 or 2 vehicle projects at a time, the reality behind the scenes is far more chaotic and complex than what appears on television. The shop actually operates up to 15 different car and motorcycle restoration projects simultaneously, creating a bustling workshop environment where multiple builds are happening in various stages of completion all at the same time. This massive workload creates what industry insiders have described as an anachronistic nightmare when it comes to filming the television show, since the production crew needs to capture footage of all these different projects while making it appear that everything flows naturally and chronologically for viewers at home. The challenge becomes even more complicated because each vehicle restoration can take weeks or months to complete, but the filming schedule needs to capture enough content for multiple episodes within a much shorter time frame. The result is that scenes are filmed completely out of chronological order, with camera crews jumping between different projects on different days and then editing everything together later to create the illusion of a logical timeline. A single episode might feature footage shot weeks apart, showing different stages of various builds that were actually happening simultaneously rather than one after another as the final edit suggests. This behind-the-scenes reality means that the crew members need to keep track of where each project stands, not just for their actual work, but also for the cameras, making sure their comments and reactions match whatever stage of completion a particular vehicle was supposed to be at for filming purposes. The editing process becomes incredibly complex as producers work to weave together footage from multiple projects and multiple time frames into episodes that tell coherent stories about individual car builds. Despite these challenges, the production team manages to create television that appears seamless and logical, even though the actual filming process involves coordinating an enormous amount of simultaneous work that would be overwhelming for most automotive shops to handle. Fact 9. Danny's crown jewel car is from the 1980s. Among Danny Koker's impressive collection of over 50 cars, one of his most prized possessions is a Lamborghini Countach 5000S, which creates an interesting contradiction since this particular vehicle comes from the 1980s. A decade that Danny himself has openly criticized as being terrible for automotive design. Danny has publicly stated that the 1980s were essentially a lost cause when it came to cars, describing that era as producing vehicles that were ugly, underpowered, plagued with enough emission devices to choke out a dump truck, and ugly, emphasizing his disdain for 80s automotive styling by mentioning the ugliness twice. Despite his harsh criticism of 1980s car design in general, Danny makes a clear exception for his Lamborghini Countach, which he considers one of the crown jewels of his entire collection. The Countach 5000S represents the peak of Lamborghini's wedge-shaped supercar design philosophy, featuring the dramatic angular styling and scissor doors that made it an icon of automotive excess during the Reagan era. The car's distinctive appearance and legendary performance capabilities apparently override Danny's general distaste for vehicles from that particular decade. However, what makes this situation even more interesting is that despite owning this spectacular Lamborghini and considering it a centerpiece of his collection, the Countach still isn't Danny's ultimate dream car. For decades, he has been actively searching for and trying to acquire a Lamborghini Miura, which was produced in the 1960s and is widely considered one of the most beautiful supercars ever created. The Miura represents the holy grail for Danny's collection, and he has spoken about it as the one car that has consistently eluded him despite his success and resources. This pursuit of the Miura reveals that even someone with Danny's extensive collection and industry connections still has automotive goals that remain unfulfilled, proving that for true car enthusiasts, there's always one more special vehicle out there waiting to be discovered and added to the garage, no matter how impressive their current collection might already be. Fact 10. The shop has a serious ghost problem. Danny Koker genuinely believes that Count's Kustoms is haunted by supernatural spirits, and he has spoken openly about various ghostly encounters and unexplained phenomena that regularly occur at his Las Vegas automotive shop. This isn't just a publicity stunt or a joke related to his Count persona. Danny appears to be completely serious when he discusses the paranormal activity that he and his employees have experienced while working on cars and motorcycles at the facility. The ghost stories at Count's Kustoms have become such a regular part of the shop's culture that Danny openly acknowledges the supernatural presence as part of the daily working environment. He has described experiencing various types of unexplained occurrences that range from mysterious sounds and movements to more dramatic supernatural events that have left him and his crew members genuinely unsettled during their work hours. Danny's belief in the haunted nature of his shop fits perfectly with his longtime fascination with gothic and supernatural themes, which dates back to his days as a horror movie host and continues through his vampire-inspired branding and dark aesthetic choices throughout Count's Kustoms. The supernatural element adds an eerie atmosphere to what would otherwise be a typical automotive restoration facility, creating an environment where employees need to focus on rebuilding engines while also dealing with whatever ghostly presence might be lurking around the workshop. The paranormal activity at the shop has become serious enough that it affects the actual operations and workflow at Count's Kustoms, with Danny and his team having to work around whatever supernatural occurrences might interrupt their daily tasks. This creates a unique working environment where skilled mechanics and artists are restoring classic cars while simultaneously dealing with what Dany believes to be genuine supernatural phenomena, making Count's Kustoms possibly the only automotive shop in the world where employees need to worry about both mechanical problems and ghostly interference while trying to complete their restoration projects. Fact 11. Dany gets his car facts wrong regularly. Despite being positioned as an automotive expert on counting cars and serving as the go-to car specialist on Pawn Stars, Danny Koker frequently makes factual errors about automobiles that sharp-eyed viewers are quick to catch and call out online. This creates an awkward situation where the supposed expert who is supposed to educate audiences about classic cars and automotive history regularly provides incorrect information that undermines his credibility as a knowledgeable mechanic and restoration specialist. The problem stems from the fact that Dany is completely self-taught when it comes to automotive knowledge, having never received formal training or education in mechanics, automotive history, or related technical fields. While his hands-on experience and passion for cars is genuine, his lack of formal education sometimes shows when he makes statements about specific vehicle details, historical facts, or technical specifications that turn out to be inaccurate when fact-checked by viewers who know better. These factual mistakes have become frequent enough that eagle-eyed fans of the show regularly take to social media and online forums to point out Dany's errors, often providing correct information and sources to back up their corrections. The criticism has been significant enough that it has actually affected Dany's reputation among serious car enthusiasts who expect accurate information from someone who is presented as an expert in the field. The situation became so problematic that the production team behind Counting Cars eventually had to implement a fact-checking process for later seasons of the show. This means that all claims and statements made by Dany about automotive facts, specifications, and history are now double-checked by researchers before episodes are aired, ensuring that viewers receive accurate information rather than Dany's sometimes faulty recollections or assumptions. This behind-the-scenes fact-checking process represents a significant change in how the show operates, since it adds an extra layer of production work and essentially acknowledges that the show's main expert cannot be trusted to provide accurate information without verification, which is an unusual situation for any reality television series that relies on expert knowledge. Fact 12. His father's Mustang started everything. Among all the incredible vehicles in Danny Koker's massive car collection, there is one automobile that holds more sentimental value than any other and represents the true beginning of his lifelong obsession with cars. When Dany was just 9 years old, his father purchased a 1966 Shelby GT 350, and that single moment sparked the passion that would eventually lead to Count's Kustoms, Counting Cars, and Dany's entire career in the automotive world. The 1966 Shelby GT 350 was technically marketed simply as a Shelby GT 350 rather than a Mustang, since Ford dropped the Mustang designation for that model year. The car came equipped with a 289 cubic inch V8 engine that produced 306 horsepower and 329 pound-feet of torque, making it a genuine high-performance machine that captured young Dany's imagination and set him on his life's path. What makes this car even more special is that Dany and his father worked on the GT 350 together, using it as a bonding experience that taught Dany the fundamentals of automotive restoration and modification. This father-son collaboration around the Shelby became the foundation for their shared passion for collecting and restoring classic cars, creating memories that would last Dany's entire lifetime and influence every aspect of his future career. Today, that same 1966 Shelby GT 350 still sits in Dany's collection, and it represents the one vehicle that he will absolutely never sell or customize no matter what offers he receives or how much money someone might be willing to pay. Even though Dany is a world-famous customizer who modifies nearly every car he touches, he has deliberately left his father's Shelby completely original and restored to factory specifications. Perhaps the most touching detail is that Dany still refers to the car as "my father's 1966 Mustang GT 350, rather than claiming ownership of it himself, demonstrating the deep, emotional connection and respect he maintains for his late father's memory through this special automobile. Fact 13. Kevin Mack mysteriously disappeared in 2020. Kevin Mack, who served as Danny Koker's right-hand man and closest friend throughout most of Counting Cars' run, suddenly vanished from the show in 2020 without any explanation from the production team or the History Channel. Kevin had been a central figure on the series since its early days, often appearing alongside Dany during car-buying expeditions and serving as the voice of reason when Dany's enthusiasm for expensive projects threatened to blow their budgets out of control. What makes Kevin's disappearance particularly puzzling is that he had been such an integral part of the show's dynamic, with his friendship with Dany dating back over 20 years to when they first met while riding motorcycles together in Las Vegas. Their on-screen chemistry and genuine friendship had been one of the most appealing aspects of Counting Cars, making his sudden absence immediately noticeable to longtime fans who had grown accustomed to seeing the two friends work together on various automotive projects. The mystery deepened because Kevin maintained an active presence on social media platforms like Twitter, where he continued posting regularly and interacting with fans, but he completely avoided discussing his absence from Counting Cars or providing any explanation for why he was no longer appearing on the show. This silence was particularly strange given that Kevin had always been relatively open with fans in the past and had never shown any reluctance to discuss his work at Kustoms. Various theories emerged among fans to explain Kevin's disappearance, ranging from scheduling conflicts with other projects to a desire for more privacy in his personal life, but none of these explanations were ever confirmed by Kevin himself or anyone associated with the show. The lack of any official statement from the production team or the History Channel only added to the speculation, leaving viewers to wonder whether Kevin's absence was temporary or permanent, and whether there had been some kind of behind-the-scenes conflict that led to his departure from a show where he had been such a prominent and beloved cast member. Fact 14. Customer reviews contradict the TV magic. While Counting Cars consistently shows customers being absolutely thrilled and amazed when they see their finished vehicles, the reality of Kustoms customer service tells a very different story that doesn't match the television fantasy. When viewers look beyond the carefully edited episodes and check actual customer reviews online, they discover that Kustoms receives decidedly mixed feedback from real customers who have paid for restoration and customization work at Danny Koker's shop. The show does an excellent job of creating dramatic reveal moments where customers appear to be completely blown away by their restored vehicles, with emotional reactions and expressions of pure satisfaction that make every project seem like a complete success. However, these televised reactions don't represent the full picture of how Kustoms actually performs when the cameras aren't rolling and real customers are paying real money for automotive work. Online review platforms and customer feedback sites reveal a much more complicated reality, with numerous complaints about various aspects of the Kustoms experience. Some customers have expressed dissatisfaction with the quality of work they received, while others have complained about communication problems, missed deadlines, or feeling that they didn't get the level of service they expected based on what they had seen on television. Additionally, some customers have specifically mentioned issues with overpriced merchandise and services, suggesting that the shop may charge premium prices based on their television fame, rather than providing value that matches those higher costs. There have also been complaints about staff attitudes and customer service experiences that don't live up to the friendly, professional image portrayed on Counting Cars. These mixed reviews highlight the difference between reality television production and actual business operations, since the show naturally focuses on the most positive outcomes and satisfied customers, while avoiding any mention of projects that didn't go smoothly or customers who weren't completely happy with their experience. This creates a misleading impression for viewers who might assume that every interaction with Count's Kustoms will match the perfect scenarios they see on television. Fact 15. The show's success started with Pawn Stars. The entire existence of Counting Cars can be traced back to Danny Koker's role as a recurring expert on the massively popular History Channel show Pawn Stars, proving that sometimes a small side job can unexpectedly launch an entire television empire. Dany originally appeared on Pawn Stars whenever Rick Harrison and the crew at Gold and Silver Pawn Shop needed someone to evaluate classic cars, motorcycles, or other automotive items that customers brought into their Las Vegas store for potential sale or pawning. Dany's relationship with the Pawn Stars cast actually goes back much further than television, since he had been friends with Rick Harrison's family for many years before either show existed. Kevin Mack, who later became Dany's right-hand man on Counting Cars, used to ride motorcycles with Rick's brother, creating a personal connection that made it natural for Rick to call on Dany whenever automotive expertise was needed for the pawn shop's transactions. When Pawn Stars became a television phenomenon, after premiering in 2009, Dany's appearances as the go-to car expert showcased his knowledge and personality to millions of viewers who had never heard of Count's Kustoms before. His enthusiastic reactions to classic vehicles and his obvious expertise in automotive restoration made him a memorable recurring character who added value and entertainment to episodes whenever vintage cars or motorcycles appeared in the pawn shop. The success of Dany's Pawn Stars appearances caught the attention of the same production company that created Pawn Stars, and they eventually approached him about developing his own show centered around his Las Vegas automotive shop. This led to the creation of Counting Cars, which became the third spin-off from Pawn Stars, following American Restoration and Cajun Pawn Stars in the expanding universe of History Channel reality programming. Without those initial appearances on Pawn Stars, Dany might have remained a successful but locally known Las Vegas car customizer, rather than becoming a nationally recognized television personality with his own series, merchandise, and expanded business empire that includes restaurants and entertainment venues.